Morning, everybody, especially those in the front rows that have been courageous enough to come closer. If I use the title of this day, I'll spend probably most of the coffee break deciphering what does it mean as a pattern of communication when your participants sit in the back rows. We warmly invite you throughout the day to dare and come maybe closer to us. My name is Goran Buldirski. I'm a director of the Think Tank Fund of the Open Society Institute, and I think the Think Tank Fund has been working with most of you over a number of projects and over time with the different support. Thank you for coming at this event, which is a joint event of PASOS and the Think Tank Fund. And it's intended to address one of the issues that came back to us reoccurring, and that's the issue of how you communicate your policy products to different audiences that are important for your work. As you probably noticed in the agenda, I hope everybody got this folder, this welcome folder with the materials inside. We have a full day ahead of us. We're really happy to host some notable speakers coming from different backgrounds with different interests, and as well we'll try to organize the day that we start more with the conceptual notes and the discussions before lunch break, and then after lunch break we move on in more hands-on sessions in a way to help you to stay energized after consuming some Central European food, but as well to put some of the things in practice. More about the subject I think we will hear throughout the day, and I'm looking forward for a day where we will learn from many different experiences. And as somebody representing a donor of a lot of think tanks, I hope at least we'll have a threshold of 5% reflected in some of your policy products. So I pass the floor to Jeff Lovitt, Executive Director of PASOS, and then to Viola Zenta, member of the subboard of the Think Tank Fund.
Okay. Thanks very much. I'm not going to be too long because I think people have heard a lot of me the last few days. Nearly everybody here has been here at least since yesterday. But perhaps just to say a bit about how this idea came about to do this event. It was actually related to a project funded by the Think Tank Fund involving a number of PASOS members, which is on the Visegrad countries' democracy assistance. And came about because there was an event where Goran and I hadn't actually known we were both going to be there, but I was presenting some of the recommendations on the Visegrad project, as was one of the members in Slovakia, and we ended up talking about how there is a tendency among certain policy centers to be perhaps heavily academic, and we'll talk about the academic methodology and arguments for putting together research, and they get to the end of their 20 minutes and they've forgotten to mention any of the results of the project or the recommendations. Also, they might like to produce 600-word volumes, but no short, snappy policy briefs, or Goran said, well, what about blogs and podcasts, let's go further. So out of that was born the idea of let's have a session on presentation, on communications techniques, trying to look forward, trying to look at new technologies. But I think the focus still is, we're not talking about let's go superficial. We're not talking about policy briefs which are short for the sake of being short. They should still be based on thorough evidence-based research. And I would give an example. Now, over a while we will see, but for instance, for the Visegrad project, we have produced policy briefs and a nice, chunky door wedge book. But hopefully, people can dip into well broken up chapters clear policy recommendations. Now, it's certainly not the best example of its kind. There are many better examples. But in terms of if you want to influence decision makers, who is the audience? How can you get to them? Are there different messages for the different types of audience? It's not just about the media, it's about decision makers. And as I just said to somebody over coffee, a quote from Michael Emerson when he talked to me last night about yesterday's event at the Foreign Ministry. He said, great event, great panels, very effective, but I don't think the Czech presidency is going to be very effective. Too much feeling that they're waiting for the next paper from the Commission. I think he was probably a bit harsh, but at the same time, what's the point of that conference? What's the follow-up? And we didn't get much media there, and we didn't get much media there because the government has a no-confidence vote tomorrow, and because Angela Merkel decided at a week's notice to come to Prague, so we didn't get the Deputy Prime Minister. It might have been better if we'd had it on Sunday, but we didn't have it on Sunday because the Foreign Ministry didn't want to all come in from their weekend break on a Sunday, and they were our target audience, so we had the Foreign Ministry on every panel. But that, as an isolated event, is a great one-off profiling and communications event, but we now need to do the follow-up, we now need to engage, and this is where, perhaps out of this, it would be interesting to see which PASOS members would like to be part of presenting short, snappy, one-pagers of recommendations for the Czech presidency. It might be we should be targeting Brussels at the same time, but that's something perhaps we can think of towards the end. And I think there's also a kind of PR thing, and I think this is something else that Goran and I hatched over Skype or something, was we were talking about this top 10, top 100 think tanks in the world which Jim McGann is putting together, which I think is superficial and basically people voting for their friends, and I don't take it seriously. And I've told Jim McGann that. And we were thinking, well, why not do something which actually says we'll give an award for the best policy product? Because maybe Foreign Policy is going to publish this top think tanks of the world. I saw in there that Transparency International is in there. Now, I used to be communications director of Transparency International before I lost the ability to say the word transparency. But it is not a think tank. It does produce research, but when I was communicating, it was advocacy, it was awareness raising, it was publishing an index, it was getting op-eds in the FT and the International Herald Tribune, but it wasn't a think tank. A lot of the organizations on there, it's because basically high media profiling, and that is incredibly important, but so is the quality of the work. And the fact that the work done by, say, a policy center in Albania is in Albanian means it's not going to get much coverage in the International Herald Tribune. It doesn't mean it's great work. So I'm hoping we can perhaps have a kind of alternative, not rankings, but perhaps at least a way of recognizing the quality. But also, I hope, through events like this, we can help strengthen the impact of those products, of those policy outputs. So that's why we're here today, and I hope from today that not only will we learn something, but also we might be able to identify among the PASOS members and other policy centres here who perhaps has particular experience, because I know there are a couple of members with really good expertise in blogging and putting together very interactive websites, and perhaps we can draw on those resources perhaps for future training events. Okay.